Welcome back to the channel, everybody. How you doing? I just want to say I appreciate you guys being here. Today we're going to talk about my favorite books of the year so far. I actually looked at my Goodreads to see all the books I've read throughout the year. I only got 4 books that I'm like, wow, these are my favorites so far. I have a couple of 5-star reads now, which is fine. I mean, it doesn't mean they're my favorites, but they were good books and I kept thinking about them. But the ones I put as 5-star reads are definitely on here. Man, it's not like I had a bad reading year so far. I actually think I had a pretty good one so far. I'm really happy with them so far. But I do have 5 of them on here, so that's a pretty good start. Hopefully by the end of the year, they'll stay on there. If they're not, means that the second half of the year got way better. Kind of like how last year was. The first half of last year was not good at all. The second half of the year was so good, where I think almost all my favorite reads were from the second half of the year, which is kind of crazy to think, but hey, things happen. So there is none in any order. I'm just going to talk about for a few moments of my favorite books. Number 5 on this list, as I say, they are not in any order. I'm just going to list them 1 to 5. Doesn't mean that this one's my favorite, this one's my least favorite. I'm just gonna name them off and then go from there. Number 5 on this list is Weave World by Clive Barker. This was such a weird book. This is the second book I read from Clive Barker after I read Hellbound Heart. So Hellbound Heart was his little novella of, Hellraiser. If you guys ever seen Hellraiser, that's where it's from. So I decided to read Weave World. I went to one of my local bookstores and oh man, they had so many Clive Barker. So I bought 1 book from him, and that was Weave World. Just the cover alone looked really, really nice, and it just looked so bizarre. And I was like, you know what? We'll try this one. And after I read Weave World, I went bananas and just bought the rest, a bunch of his books. I'm looking directly at them, and I have 8 of them already. And I've only read 2 of them, so that's pretty good. But yes, Weave World is a very unique kind of portal fantasy. Is the way I like to explain it. It's portal fantasy, and I never really read a lot of portal fantasy. When I think of what is portal fantasy, I usually think of Narnia, because Narnia is that, where you essentially go through a portal and you're in a new fantasy world, and this is through a rug, which is just a really cool, unique thing. And I think the best part about Clive Barker, and I will always say this on every single one of his books I keep reading, unless something changes, then clearly I'm going to mention that. The man can write. This dude can write and spin some words. And the way that he describes every little bit of a book is so insane. In Weave World, there was a scene where it was so disgusting of body horror, and I loved it. I just sat there and I was so absorbed in the way that he was writing his characters and the way that these horrific things were coming onto you. It was just so good that I was like, wow, this is a banger book. This is why the more and more I keep reading, Clive Barker has become easily one of my favorite authors of all time. Now, this is actually one of my all-time favorite movies, so there's no surprise that this is on my list for my top 5 favorite novels halfway through the year. And as No Country for Old Men by Cormac McCarthy. This book is pretty simple. It's really, really good, and it's a lot deeper than you think it is. A lot of people don't know who is the main character, but we all know. If you actually read this and you actually understand the whole plot of this book, you know the main character. I love the little plots that are laced along this book that you don't really notice in the movie, but in the book you actually do understand it, and you do notice just the way that these characters are built and made, and just the effect of the youth of what they are willing to do to themselves and to the others around them is the best way to explain it. I haven't really read too much Cormac McCarthy until The Road of last year, and then I just said I'm going to read a couple more Cormac McCarthy books, and this is the second one, and wow, this is definitely one of my favorite books, one of my favorite reads of the year of 2025. Another one on this is George Orwell's Animal Farm. I wanted to read Animal Farm just because I've never read it, and it's just a classic book. I'm trying to get into more classic literature. Oh man, this book is interesting. It's a very deep novel that I guess it went over my head the first time because I did a review, and so people commented and let me know what the book is actually about, which is really good because I did not know what the book was actually about. So reading this book, it was just such a deep, thought-provoking novel of gluttony in a way, and greed. I think it's about communism. Now, I could be totally wrong, but a lot of people said it was reference to communism with Russia back during the 40s through the 60s, with the Soviet Union during that time. So that's a really interesting way to look at it. It kind of is that forefront where, yeah, we're all supposed to be united, but secretly there's people on top that are pushing you down, but they're still spreading propaganda, I guess, in a way. So I thought that was a really interesting way to look at this book, and the more I kept thinking about it, I'm like, wow, this is a really deep novel. Number 2 on this list is Emily Henry. I decided to binge a lot of Emily Henry during my spring TBR, and Happy Place became my favorite book from her pretty quick. The relatability of being an adult. Now, why do I say that? Because being an adult means you move on from things that you used to do as a child or when you're a young teenager. And the reality of moving on in life and not being able to do a lot of things with your friends like you once used to. Me, for example, I used to spend every weekend, every Friday night, every Saturday night, hanging out with my friends. We're going to play D&D, or we're playing Magic the Gathering, or playing video games. And when you get older and you find your girlfriend and you get married and you are growing older, your responsibilities tend to change. Life tends to change for everybody. And that's something in this book that really sinks in very deeply with me. And especially with the main character, where you get to really live through her view of her moving on with her life, and all of her friends are still trying to cling to it. And it's just really, really deep. Especially the more and more you kept thinking about it, it's just like, holy crap. So that was like why I really liked Happy Place a lot. Last on this list is Vagabond. Vagabond is arguably one of the greatest manga I've ever read in my entire life. It's so good that my now fiance bought me this beautiful leatherbound, still sealed, because I told her I started reading this back in the spring. Every season I usually try to read something, at least one manga series. So during the winter, finish this in January, so it counts. But I read this and I was mind blown by how much I love this. And when I was reading this out in my living room, my now fiance was there. She was like reading with me. She would just see how invested I was. There was times where I'd pause and just sit there and say, holy crap, this book is so deep. So she ended up buying this for me for Christmas, and I got rid of all the other ones I had. I had like a bunch of paperback ones. So I got rid of those ones, and I am now upgrading to all leatherbound of Vagabond. Usually I'm not like that unless I really truly love something. Like I have Berserk right up here. I have Hellsing here. Eventually, I want to get all these, all Vinland Saga and all of Trigon eventually. But this book, this series is so deep that I truly believe especially for men, I explain this a lot to a lot of other men that are like, man, I'm just lonely. I don't know how to deal with these things. I get really angry and I just don't know how to deal with my emotions. I'm like, you need to read Vagabond. This whole book is about male loneliness, essentially, where the main character deals with being alone and dealing with his emotions and dealing with his frustrations, dealing with his anger. It's all embedded in this book. I'm not even kidding. It's just crazy how much I've read this, and I feel like if I was younger, it would hit me way harder, and his book still hit me pretty hard. And I love this series so much, and I just cannot wait until it's finally finished, whenever that is. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. What is your favorite books of the year so far? I would love to know down below. What do you guys think about the ones I liked so far? Are these any that you have read that you also are like, wow, yeah, these are really good? Or do you disagree with my favorites and you can tell me I'm wrong for liking these books? Regardless though, let me know down below. And of course, last but not least, stay safe, stay humble, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay weird.